We're going to go through our keto talk. I just want to kind of start out with where keto kind of came into my liking as a doctor and as a person who's always struggled with my weight. Growing up, I did a lot of different diets. I started watching my nutrition when I was about 18 years of age because of bodybuilding. And when you go through bodybuilding, there's a lot of different extremes you'll go through, from low calorie to high calories to high proteins to low carb. You do all these different kind of strange diets. Biggest thing I focused on when we do our nutrition in office here, if you look at three things, C, P, and T, to keep it very simple, and I love that concept of KISS, keep it simple, silly. Choices, portions, and timing. And pretty much anything when it comes to nutrition and how you adapt to your nutrition, it's going to come into the choices that you're making, the portion size you're eating, and then the timing of the food itself. And so there's three critical factors. Now, the most success I saw initially was when paleo came into my existence. So paleo really pretty much focused on the choices. So paleo, in definition, again, we'll go from how we got from paleo to keto. Paleo was pretty much the time where it was all about getting back to clean eating. It wasn't about using supplements. It wasn't about using fake foods. It was all about using produce versus products, which was a big concept for me, because when you're going through the whole dietary phase, I'm sure everybody out there in Facebook land has been on, different weight loss programs, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, all those things. There's a lot of products based on that. So there's a lot of products that are being sold. I wanted to get something where I didn't have to buy a product. I wasn't going to worry about something going out of business the next week and say, okay, now I don't have that anymore. So paleo was that big part of it. Paleo then turned into zone dieting. Now, zone diets was all about your portions. And again, if you know Dr. Barry's work, he did a phenomenal job of laying out, how to get the right amount of macros into your diet. And again, macros are going to come out to another numbers on here. So you have carbs, proteins, and fats. And that's what kind of brought to the table for me, was the idea that eating in sequence with how much protein, carbs, and fats, it adjusted what we're going to talk about here in a second. Why keto is so important for us and why it's so good for us is it looks at the blood sugar and helps you balance out the blood sugar. And again, that was back to more Barry Sears' zone program. Timing was the idea that we eat every 2 to 3 hours. That was kind of the given when it came to science. And again, a lot of today what I'm going to go over is stuff that's contrarian, because the science out there shows in a lot of ways that eating in longer periods of stretches helps balance the blood sugar. But the problem is, we're going to talk about insulin in a second. Insulin is a growth factor, and unfortunately for insulin, for us, it does generate muscle production, but also does generate fat production, and also it does create hormonal disruption too, which is an important part of our aging. Now, where I'm at now in my existence of 43, it's a lot about longevity than it is about getting quick results, even though I did see about 25 pounds of weight loss on this on the keto program in about 6 months. It's more about longevity now. We'll go through the benefits of that towards the end of the talk. But choices, portions, and timing. And again, what I've mapped out here basically is the eating cycle of the average human being. Okay, so the levels in here we're going to go through is that this area here and below is low blood sugar, okay, hypoglycemic. This is hyperglycemic, so where you're above your blood sugar. Now, the typical American diet, how many meals do typical American diets? 3? Absolutely, 3. So, and what do they usually consist of, choices-wise? Carbohydrates, absolutely. So, I'm going to go through the typical American diet. So, most people get up about 6 or 7 o'clock. Their blood sugar is always going to be right about here. Now, when you look at the word breakfast, it's breaking a fast. So when we talk about intermittent fasting, you're doing it anyway. You're just doing it for a shorter period of time. So if you stop eating at 8 o'clock and you don't eat again until 7 or 8, you've already got 11 or 12 hours in the bank when it comes to going into ketosis. So you're actually, in the morning, you are in that low blood sugar state. Now, again, typical American diet. What is in the morning? Talk about what's the most cereal. There you go. One of the most sold produce out there, or products out there. And what happens here is the blood sugar spikes. Okay, the blood sugar will spike because the body has actually developed that whole entire system in order to get carbohydrates out of our bloodstream, okay, and into our tissues. So what this is right here is a level, okay. And some of you might have had fasting glucose. Some of you guys might have hemoglobin A1C. These are all measurements of how your body is dealing with sugar. So what happens here is this. The typical American diet consists of primarily carbohydrates, okay? And maybe some coffee and some cream and maybe some artificial sweeteners in your coffee. All of those tend to make the blood sugar go way up high. Now, in the human body, when we have that high spike, we've got this beautiful system in play that will allow us to deal with that. And do you guys know why why we have a whole system dedicated to dealing with sugar. You know what likes sugar more than we like sugar? Bacteria. And so one of the things that we have bacteria always on our bodies. And one of the biggest fears, if you've ever met anyone who has type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes now, the biggest fear factor is infection. And the reason why they're prone to infection is because they have a higher amount of blood sugar. And that bacteria that may exist on the outside, like if you ever seen that the little sign in your doctor's office says, please take your shoes off if you're diabetic, they want to check your feet. Because a lot of people don't realize they have something on their foot, they stepped on a Lego or something, and it might have nicked them, and all of a sudden that bacteria gets into the bloodstream, and all of a sudden the body says, wow, I got a lot of high sugar, bacteria will go right to that spot. And so bacteria flourishes easily in that environment. So, we developed at the system, we had insulin. So insulin is a powerful hormone, okay? The primary responsibility for insulin is it acts like a taxi cab. It's trying to get the blood sugar that's going up in your body somewhere else, okay? It's got to go somewhere different. The first place it goes in the morning is into your brain. That's the first place it goes. So when you break that fast in the morning, as soon as you get that first part of that carbohydrate in your system, it's going to go right to the brain. The second one is going to go to your muscles. Now, the muscle one is interesting because muscle, and you actually can say liver in here too, muscle and liver. That's where the sugar is going to go to, because what the body needs to do then is optimize its energy source. And now in this program here, you're going to realize that sugar is probably it's like burning diesel versus like electric in a car. That's how bad it can be on our systems, because there's a lot of effects from it. So as the insulin goes up, so you have livers and muscles, and then finally it goes to your fat stores. So our body will convert that sugar into stored fat. So this is one of the reasons why when we talk about exercise, I do recommend on this program you do your exercise in the morning early to get it out of the way, or right before you break your fast at the end of it. We'll talk about the intermittent fasting part of it. Because what you want to optimize here is the idea that you don't want to over store it, okay? So when you get here, when you get to high blood sugar, insulin is secreted, and it says, I'll go here, and then I'll go here. The unfortunate part is the human body has about 2 teaspoons worth of sugar in its bloodstream. So it's not a whole ton, but we consume about 145 pounds of it a year. It's pretty high on that side. So outside of notch, when your brain gets to sugar, really quick, probably your first 2 bites of your cereal, your brain's satisfied. The next couple of ones, if you haven't worked out that day, your muscles are pretty much full. Anyway, if you want to think about a muscle, think about a big bag of protein with sugar water inside of it, okay? It just fills up, okay? When that water fills up inside that muscle and it's not being used, it then turns into stored energy. That goes into fat, okay? So think of it that way. So when you work out, you're using up that glucose water inside that bag of muscle, that bag of protein. It goes down, down, down. Then your body will put it back into other areas and put it back into the muscles predominantly, okay? Again, one of those advantages of it. So when you're in high sugar, your body will then have to get rid of it using insulin. What then happens right around 11 o'clock for most people? It's that crash. All of a sudden you're bottomed out, okay? One of the things about the body is that what goes up quick also comes down fast too. So when your body gets the high sugar, it utilizes it very quickly. All of a sudden you get an extra cup of coffee, you grab a donut, you're ready for lunch, and you have, what's a typical lunch look like? Most people.
Sandwich.
Wawa, right? Go to Wawa, let's get a quick sandwich. Back up again. What happens around 3 o'clock? There's that crash again, okay? What happened here? The body's then had to deposit. Well, here's the tip for most people not unfortunately not working out, that goes back to fat again. And the next thing you know, you have that crash about 3 o'clock, and then you have dinner again, and you crash back out again. So that's pretty much typical American diet right there. And what winds up happening is that this hormonal dysregulation then makes everything else not function correctly. So inflammation's up higher, testosterone goes low. All of this insulin growth factor really drives a lot of the basic sex hormones in our bodies that allow us to get muscle and be who we should be. Typical American diet, okay? You can see, again, fat, losing muscle. Now down here, there's glucagon. So glucagon is another hormone that then takes energy out of the muscles in order to utilize it for our bloodstream, okay? And it's coming to find out that glucagon as a whole, it takes a lot to get into a deep state of that, because one of the processes of where I had to go through my own stuff as a physician, as an interested person in keto diet was, am I going to lose a lot of muscle? And the cool part about it is that when you're keto adapted, which we'll get to in a second, your body actually is able to shuttle that process, that glucagon process down, so you're not burning through muscle anymore, you're actually burning through your ketone energies. So, typical American diet. Now, when we started playing with paleo, Paleo brought to the table the idea that you're getting in higher nutrition-based foods. Now, the unfortunate part is we didn't really mention too much about, you know, what people were eating. We said cereal. Cereal predominantly what? A grain, right? And mostly it's going to come from carbohydrates. Sandwich, again, rolls, all that stuff, breads. A lot of very, very high carbohydrate concentration. So when you go to the zone diet, and what we try to, you know, kind of teach on the zone side of things, let me clear out the typical American diet. And then we're going to go through our zone diet. So here's how this works. Insulin, again, plays a big factor in this. And again, insulin, as such, is a driver, again, of a lot of the different processes that have to happen. So here's where the kind of the zone came in, was this kind of undulating every 2 to 3 hours coming through. Okay, there we go. So this is pretty much what a lot of people adopted to. You might be out there too right now where you're eating 5 meals a day. That was kind of the next science. Okay, this is what I was teaching about a year and a half ago. When you're eating 5 meals a day, you're able to balance out your sugar. Now, this green line here probably gets a little bit higher, but again, the nice part about the zone diet and the process in the zoning is the idea that you have protein, fat with your carbohydrates, and that's an important component because it keeps this insulin down, okay? So as you start to go through your day, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meals, and then you're ending on that lower threshold right here. Now again, with zone and with paleo, you're eating very clean foods in an easy rhythm and format. The downside of this for us is, number one, is we start the insulin process earlier in the day, okay? So you're starting at you start eating about 7 a.m. typically. Each time you eat a meal, so anytime a protein or a carbohydrate comes into your body has to secrete insulin, okay? Even if it's not high. What winds up happening here is basic math. When you're eating 3 meals and you have a high quantity of it, each one of these meals you're spiking insulin, it's showing off. But here's the problem. You're now spiking your insulin 5 times a day versus just 3 times before. So we're really still doing the same thing. We're creating a lot of insulin in our system, which again, we want to shuttle that system down. So when you're eating those 5 meals a day, again, if you're working out consistently, your body has the ability to put it back through the muscles and all that kind of stuff. And I say efficiently too, I mean, you know, again, 4 times a week, trying to get your training in, you can pretty much balance that part out. Here was the problem. In and of itself, I love it because it's fulfilling, again, what I'm looking for choices-wise with paleo, it's eating the right foods. The portion control, for some cases, it was really well, but the snafu for me was this ending period down here, okay? What happened to me and happens to a lot of people is I would eat really well throughout the day, get balanced meals, protein, carbs, fat, protein, carbs, fat, protein, carbs, fat, protein, carbs, fat, and then all of a sudden by like 8 o'clock, I was starving. And I was almost driven to carbohydrates exclusively. I would say, all right, there's chips in the house, I'm going to eat chips. So there's a video on Facebook, you go back through our history, where I told people I'm a carboholic. Like, I thought I was addicted to carbohydrates. I seriously wanted to like join like an AA group for carbohydrate consumers, right? And you might feel that way too, because what was happening here is my energy capacity throughout the whole entire day, I would do so well, and all of a sudden, boom, drop it down. Here's the problem with that, guys. That cheat meal that got into my system, it was spiking insulin way up, and guess what was happening when I was sleeping? I was putting it to fat. So I was actually, you know, doing all this hard work and all of a sudden falling off. And that's you out there in the world. I want to tell you right now, you're not a carboholic, okay? What's happening here is the idea that your body needed more calories during this time. So that's one of the things about this diet as you go through. It needed more calories, and that's where, again, this is where keto came into the picture. Okay, so zone paleo, okay, you got it there. Okay, so now what we're going to look at is the timing portion, okay? So one of the principles of zoning is that you're eating every 2 to 3 hours. Again, you're creating this little bit of an undulation coming back in and through. Well, lo and behold, with the science out there now, and it's been out there for a while, and again, some of you might have first heard of keto diets by Dr. Atkins, was the first guy that came out. The only problem with Dr. Atkins' program was the idea that his choices weren't of the best. He just said, eat fat. That's all he said, was eat fat as your primary energy source. And it was all the fat you could eat. So it was sausage, it was bacon, it was eggs, it was meat, it was all kind of stuff. And what winds up happening, we call that dirty keto. It's a dirty keto. And within about 3 weeks, and this, we're going to talk about this programming, it's a 3-week program. Within about 3 weeks, your micronutrients, all the good vitamins and minerals that come out of your food sources will be depleted, and then you would just kick. I couldn't sustain it. I've done Atkins before. So we do what we call clean keto. So again, today's all about clean keto and intermittent fasting. So typical, what I was looking like probably about 9 months ago, well, like 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I was kind of in between, just pretty much what you're seeing right here as far as my adaptation went to. All right, so now, with the keto diet, and the science that's there, is the idea that we don't have to use sugar as our primary energy source. So this whole system here, by and of design, going back to paleo, and what would happen to me at that last part, is because primally, how we're designed, we have a whole other energy source besides sugar. We have an actual energy source that lies right down here, in this little threshold, right here, and right along here. And what they're showing more and more, hi, you good? I say hi, it's Facebook Live, we're live, no? All right, cool. All right, so what we have going on now is that with keto, there's a second energy source in the body. Sugar is very expensive. Sugar is expensive because of the insulin. What's up? Go sit down. Yes, please. All right, you can hang out then. All right, so insulin is very expensive for the body. Like I said, it's got a whole organ dedicated to it. It's got the pancreas that's dedicated to actually. So what we're looking at now for glucagon is this, is that when your sugar goes low, you're able to now burn off ketones. So ketones is an energy source in the body. When you get low, your body becomes keto adapted. It's used to burning in this low area down here. So, can you go sit down, please? We're going to go. Yes, please. I know. My little ones. You got little ones out there? Everybody's got little ones, right? Yeah, I got 4 little ones. Go sit with Mary and please.
She did her own keto board.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. She drew it out good. She had better than mine on that side.
It's more legible, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go from being sugar-driven to keto-driven, okay? So now, a lot of people might have heard of ketosis before, and some people heard it and they're scared of it because of metabolic ketosis, which is basically what diabetics get when you get really low blood sugar. It can be very dangerous for them. This is not that, okay? When you get into that low blood sugar, high ketone, low blood sugar state, we're talking like, when you're diabetic, it's like 20 millimoles. We're talking about getting 2 millimoles in for ketosis. So it's not that kind of diet, okay? You're not going to die on it. It's a very good diet on that part. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. Your choices, your portions, and your timings. Again, on this diet, your choices are always going to be from a paleo perspective. You're always going to be taking in high nutrient-dense foods, okay? So you're getting in salads, you're getting in good fats, good meats, good butters, all that stuff. So your choices are there. Your portions now are going to switch. As we talked before, your portions between carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now, in a typical zone-based program, it's like, was it 40, 30, 30? General range of 30, 30, 30, 40. It depends on like where you're at. But basically what it comes down to is that it's going to flip on its head. Nice, Aaron. Go sit down, please. So what happens here on this program is that you're now going to go on a low carbohydrate take, okay? You're getting your carbohydrates down. The reason being is you want your sugar intake to go way down. So on this diet, you're looking at roughly about 10% of your calories coming out of carbohydrates. So 10%, as opposed to like, again, on a zone-based program, about 40, okay? So again, it's moderately high on a carbohydrate sense. Your protein, you're getting down, again, to about 20. So again, it's a little bit lower in protein. And then finally, your fat, you're looking at about 70% fat. Now, the hardest part for me was getting over the idea, because I'm sure most of you out there in Facebook land have been there before, that we were always told that fats were bad for us, right? Everybody said that fats are bad, fats are bad. If I told you right now that every one of your cells, you have about 72 trillion cells in your body, has a phospholipid bilayer, phospholipid bilayer, that's fat that's wrapped around your cells. That fat in there is going to be predominantly built up of the fats that you consume every single day. And so that's why the keto diet, when it came to Atkins, wasn't a healthy one, because the fats that were being consumed were very low quality fats. They were fats with a lot of toxins in them. They were high inflammatory fats. So it wasn't going to work, bar none. So these fats are high up on that side, so 70%. Now, one of the side effects that I've seen is that cholesterols go up. And it can actually freak people out a little bit. They're like, my cholesterol went up. Like, why did my cholesterol go up? Well, your body actually is becoming more efficient at utilizing its own cholesterol. So the important part of that cholesterol is, remember, that cholesterol is just like duct tape. It basically floats through your system and covers over the any inflammatory stuff that's inside your arteries and linings. So cholesterol is not the problem. Okay, the problem is how we get those tears. So again, in heart health, we do our heart health talk. We talk about the formation of the class, which everybody's always worried about when it comes to the cholesterol. But the reality of it is that it's not the cholesterol that we have to worry about, it's the sugar that we have to worry about. And the sugar, as it goes through your bloodstream, it creates little tears. And those little tears, those little rips, then get filled in by healing potentials, including cholesterol. And then cholesterol basically duct tapes over it, and it actually heals that up. Now the problem is you keep having sugar, you tear back at the duct tape, it gets more and more and more and more. So the problem isn't cholesterol, the problem is the sugar. And cholesterol, just so everybody knows out there in Facebook land and here, that cholesterol is a backbone of the majority of, again, your sex hormones. It's the building block of your brain. Your brain is based off cholesterol. So if someone tells you you have a fat head, it's not a bad thing. You have a nice fat brain. It's going to have a lot of potential for when it comes to being smart and using things. As a matter of fact, there's several studies out there right now looking at the keto diet with brain-based disorders like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and those kind of things, and it's seeing some really good results because people are getting back to replenishing and less stress on the actual system itself, the brain system itself, which is pretty fascinating on that part. So again, fats are at 70%. Your proteins are at 20%. This is a leap of faith for me again. Being a muscly guy, and when they put proteins in my system, I always thought that I had to get about 1 to 1.2 grams per body weight of protein. The problem with that now lies in the idea that, guess what? Protein, hey Mark, what's up, buddy? Protein will also spike insulin. So there's the problem. So again, carbohydrates spike insulin and protein spikes insulin. So that was a downside. So again, lowering my protein down. Again, last thing is carbohydrates. Getting my body down to that low carbohydrates. Here's the deal. Outside of this is we have a caloric intake that we're responsible for every day. So there's a calculator, I'm going to leave in a link below. There's a calculator that can actually calculate how many calories you burn per day. Every day you wake up, your requirement is to get to that threshold in some regards, okay? Now, if you're looking at weight loss, you get below it. You guys probably know, most of you guys know, because we've studied weight loss for a long time. If you burn 3,500 calories in a week, you lose about 1 pound of fat? Yeah, 1 pound of fat. So what ends up happening is that deficit starts to add up. Here was the problem. When your carbohydrates go low, and you don't get your fats or your proteins up, this is where I was making my mistake with my zone. Remember that chance before where everything kind of went down here. What you wind up having happen is another hormone, okay? The last hormone we're going to talk about today. I know it's getting kind of tough on the hormone levels, but we're going to talk about ghrelin. Ghrelin, I'm pretty sure, right? Little gremlin guy.
Gremlin.
Right? Yes. So ghrelin, and the other one is leptin. All right. So now, where my science changed was the idea that I used to study all the time insulin and glucagon. They were the 2 primary hormones we looked at. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to look at ghrelin and we're looking at leptin, okay? 2 very, very powerful hormones that actually are over top of this in a whole chart of things. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone, okay? We actually have a hormone that was making me a carboholic, okay? And that hunger hormone exists in our brain for the most part. When your body becomes calorically deficient, all of a sudden that little hunger hormone pops up. So it's equivalent to when we were paleo people, we were running around in the woods. If we were not consuming an animal that day of some sort, because we were hunter-gatherers back then, so we weren't eating an animal, like a deer or other animal. Predominantly, what do you think's in that kind of food source if you're eating a deer? What kind of macros?
Protein.
Proteins and what? Fats, right? Yeah, proteins and fats. So they were actually doing ketos way back when. They were more of a ketogenic diet. So what would happen was, when you don't have that intake of calories, because the fat and the protein would give you that sense of fullness in there, your body would then kick into ketosis, and most ketone levels would kick in, and your body would start secreting ghrelin. So ghrelin was basically, it's an awareness hormone. It makes you aware of everything. Like for instance, like when you're starving, you can smell food from miles away. I know for a fact that when I'm adjusting, and I was on my low blood sugar days, so when I was doing a zone diet, at the end of the day, when someone walked in and they came in, say, from like Square One Pub around the corner, I could smell what they had for food. I'd be like, I smell it. It smells like pizza. You so many pizza, everything smelled and looked that much better. So here comes to find out that the reason why that hormone was there was because when we were cave people, we would have an abundance. We would have to basically consume what we could consume when we could consume it. So if you had a deer that day, let's say we were very successful hunting that morning, and we all had a nice big deer carcass to eat, we would walk past a blueberry bush and not even look at it. We would walk right past it and be right there, because nature's finicky that way. You can't just ravagely consume everything, because then you would have nothing there. So what will happen would be is that if you didn't eat for any length of time, typically for about anywhere a couple of days to a couple of weeks sometimes, not going without food, you would then see and feel all that food. You walk right past it, and the blue will be blue, and the smell will be the smell, and you'd be like, I smell it out. So think about that from a primal level. Your body is driven and guided towards this process. I got to do my talk. So it's driven and guided towards this process that when you're in that state of caloric deficit, your body is working against you. So it's not that you're weak-willed, and I would beat myself up, and I would blame my wife for buying all the carbohydrates, and sorry, Kimmy, it wasn't your fault. It was ghrelin that the whole time was making me want to go after that. So we got to get that ghrelin under control in order for this to happen. What do you got there? Oh, you drew a nice one. Very cool. So what winds up happening here is we have something called leptin. So guess what? Leptin helps battle ghrelin. It actually keeps it down. But leptin's very hard to get to, okay? Because leptin's inside of our fat cells, okay? So when leptin is released, the only reason it's released is because your body has enough calories and it's predominantly coming from fat. Because now insulin's not no longer a factor. Your body's able to stay low. So leptin, it was studied probably about 20 years ago, about 15 years ago. In rats, if they injected leptin into a fat rat, that rat lost a ton of weight very quickly. The problem was when it transited to humans, the injectable kind wasn't going to be available, but the pill kind, because there was actually a leptin weight loss program back in the late 90s, early 2000s. The problem is the leptin in the stomach will get digested by all the enzymatic, all the acids in the stomach, and so it wouldn't get through our system. So we got to get into leptin, okay? So we have these two hormones here. So you have ghrelin that says, hey, I'm hungry or hangry. Let's go hangry. I am hangry, I'm hungry and angry. So that's that ghrelin part. That's what we're going to have to get under control. We're going to do that by timing manipulation and by choices and portion manipulation. Back into leptin. Okay, so let's go through the keto adaptation. Our goal now is to get into this area right here, in that low blood sugar threshold right there. We never want to go up above this area. As a matter of fact, ghrelin actually does happen pretty much anywhere, even on that paleo diet or that zone diet. Ghrelin is going to be going up anywhere, even getting some sugar in your system. That's why it's on such a low carbohydrate threshold when we talk about the breakdown here. So what we're going to do, we're going to now switch our macros around. By having a higher fat diet with moderate proteins and lower carbohydrates, we are now going to balance not just the insulin system, but the system of ghrelin and leptin, okay? By the way, whoever is out there is looking for weight loss, all weight loss is not created equal, okay? You can lose 5 pounds of water in a night. That's typical for a guy out there. It's about anywhere between 5 to 10% of your body weight can be lost. Even overnight just sleeping sometimes with having low water intake, you can gain and lose weight. That's the kind of weight loss we're looking for. You can also burn other types of fat, like the fat that's in your extremities, on your different body parts. The hardest fat ever, I'm sure most of you agree, was that stubborn belly fat. Okay, that was always my fat. So like whenever I would get into my zone state and do really well in zone dieting, I would see weight loss, but it wasn't coming from where I wanted to come from. It will always just get back to a certain point. So what we're looking at now is how do we get that fat off of our belly? And how we get that off our belly is by having leptin become more active. Again, that's going to be that fat hormone sitting inside of our fat. So here's what we're doing. On this dietary program, we're going to bump our fat intake up, keep our proteins moderate, and get our carbohydrates low. How we're going to achieve that is, again, by looking at our choices that we have as far as eating goes. First and foremost, we're going to start out on this keto diet with an intermittent fasting, okay? If you have a paper and pencil handy, you're looking at about a 16 and 8 breakdown. That means 16 hours you're going to be fasting, 8 hours you're going to be consuming. So what that means to the average American out there is we're going to skip breakfast. Yes, you heard me, we're skipping breakfast, okay? We want to eat when we're hungry, okay? That's when we're going to drive these mechanisms. So we're going to push that. Okay, so typical, most people don't eat past 8 typically, because it doesn't go anywhere but your fat. So past 8 o'clock. We're going to start the clock right at 8 o'clock, and we're going to push it out for 16 hours. So for me, I stop eating at 8. I don't eat again until noon. That's my starting point when I start to eat. Now, what that does for us is a few things. Number one, obviously, we have a longer fasting period. And so our body now is staying low again. Because remember I told you guys before when we first started this, when you wake up, even if you had a big sugary diet the night before, your body finds a way to burn off those calories, and you always wake up a little bit in that zone right there. So when you're first awake in the morning, your body's predominantly starting to utilize ketones as an energy source. We want to push that out. Now, what we're going to do during the diet is we're going to add into the diet fats, okay? So the first fats I recommend getting in is in the form of bulletproof coffee. And again, bulletproof coffee is a combination of coffee, organic preferably. I only buy organic coffee. 1 to 2 cups, depending upon who you are, what you do. I do 2 cups in the morning. We're going to be putting 1 tablespoon of coconut oil or MCT oil, depends upon which way you want to go, and we're going to put butter in there. And it sounds gross, and I actually have a couple samples. It probably settled out a little bit. You want to eat it, drink it kind of quick. What it winds up doing is it gives you about 40 grams of fat right away in the morning. And we said we got to get that calorie content up. Now, most of you might know that fat has how many calories? Anybody know? 9 calories. What does carbohydrate have? 4. Yeah. So when you get in 40 grams of fat, you're getting in twice as much if they're in the form of carbohydrates. Plus, it's a lot less insulin generating. Okay, so that's the key here. When you have that bulletproof coffee, you will not be spiking that insulin like you would that typical American diet. You might come up a little bit, but you're going to dip right back down into there. Now, the other effect of coffee is what? What does it make us feel like energy-wise? Stimulant, yeah. So it stimulates up. So we start to burn more calories during that time. So that's going to be what you're going to sustain in the very first beginning of the morning. You're going to have that coffee, okay? And again, it's organic coffee, 1 scoop of big heaping tablespoon of coconut oil, and 1 heaping tablespoon, of butter, grass-fed butter. We use Kerry Gold. You can buy a giant, pretty readily available. That's the first thing I'll consume. And what's going to wind up happening here is I have this nice extended energy phase right here. Because you're not spiking this insulin up and down, I no longer have those drops. I no longer have that 11 o'clock like, oh my goodness, I'm tired. As a matter of fact, when I'm in ketosis and I'm working with ketones as an energy source, my energy goes up. It's a really nice, almost like a high feeling because I'm still very functioning overall. Now, when noon hits, I'm looking for that first meal. The cool part about being in ketosis is that it's not like I'm like dying to get there. You're not even that starving yet. And you test it before. I'm like, oh, we lunch. It's like 1 o'clock, right? Yeah. So we can push that sometimes going back through. So the first thing I will typically have for me on these intermittent fasting days with ketosis is I usually do a salad. So again, for me, it's a big heaping thing of just spinach, kale, green peppers, cucumbers are on there, whatever I can put on there. And then I'm going to add in my fats, okay? So on the diet, you'll see there's a manual for it. Your fats are abundant when it comes down to things like olive oil. It's a big one for me. So do olive oil and like some vinegar and oil and just shake it up and just put it in there. Then we do eggs. I'll put a couple of hard-boiled eggs in there. So that's 2 eggs, 2 hard-boiled eggs. I'll do capers. I'll do olives. I'll do bacon on there too. So I do include, again, one of the choices that we do allow on the diet is some bacon. Not a ton of it. Like I said, you got to have the vegetables with the bacon. You can't just go pure bacon. And then I'll have a little bit of chicken on there too to get my protein intake up. Now I'll do that for lunch, and then I'll do that again around 3 o'clock. So I'll try to get, or 4 o'clock, somewhere in that area. So I will try to get up a little bit here, and it drops back down, and back up again, and I'm right back in that ketosis. So keep in mind, as soon as you consume any carbohydrates, and again, that's even on the lines of, or proteins, it's going to take you out of ketosis for a time being. The key is to get back into this cycling back here. Now for me, I typically eat around 6 o'clock at night, 6:30 at night when Kim makes dinner. What I'll do is I eliminate the carbohydrate, so if there's like a macaroni and cheese or something that's in there, I'll usually just go with the protein, and then I always add like an avocado. Now, in our dietary manual, is that booklet anywhere? What I've outlined in here, you guys can look at this too, you guys can pass it around, is recipes. Now, there's a ton of recipes in here. There's a whole entire meal eating guide in here too. But I'll kind of go through real quick. So, bulletproof coffees in the morning for your breakfast. And then this one's going to have a simple spaghetti squash with Greek yogurt ranch dressing, 1 fat-burning buffalo chicken. So all those recipes are in here. And then for dinner, it's going to be grass-fed bison and veggie pasta. Using that spiralizer to go to noodles. It's pretty cool on that part. So that's all in here. All your stuff, the bison burgers, mom's meatloaf. There's a bunch of good stuff in there. But you'll see, again, over and over again, it's that long period where you're only having that coffee, that bulletproof coffee. Then you're doing a lunch. You're doing a dinner, typically. And then at the end down here, I'll usually either have in here, I recommend doing bone broth towards the end of the day. Again, one of the things we're talking about at the very end of here is the side effects of this diet, because the reason why it took me a while to put this together, because there are side effects, because your body's going through the state right now, trying to get used to fat burning. We're going to enter into that, when you're in that ketosis phase, your body's predominantly pulling a lot of the fat off of your liver. So let's go through that real quick. That's a whole other story. Here, hang on to that one quick. So when you're in ketosis and your body is now secreting leptin, okay, again, leptin lives inside your fat cells. When you're in ketosis, leptin becomes abundant. That leptin now allows your body to draw out a lot of toxins. So when you're carrying weight in your body, so if you look down right now, you can pinch an inch down there, you've got some fat around your liver, okay? The fat around your liver is a protective fat, okay? It's protecting your body because it's storing a lot of toxins. So one of the things about people that drink a lot of alcohol, they get fatty livers, right? You guys might have a fatty liver if you drink too much alcohol, yeah. So fatty livers, all right? You don't want a fat head, you don't want a fat liver, okay? Fat head's fine, fat liver's no, okay? So the reason why it does that is because your body has to put the toxins somewhere, okay? So we have our basic, our detoxifiers. We have our liver, which again gets challenged when it comes to our toxins throughout the day. We have our kidneys, and we have our skin. They're all, again, they're all excretory based organs getting rid of toxins in our systems. But when we can't do it, the body then shuttles back into our fats as a protective mechanism. Okay, majority of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, it's out there in the world right now, particularly type 2 diabetes, is the idea that the body is having a lot of inflammation in the system, okay, a lot of inflammatory systems. As a matter of fact, there's a body of knowledge now that's saying just because we call it heart disease or cancer or whatever, they're all inflammatory based. It's just a matter of your heart went first or your cancer came first. It's just one of those, just whatever system got weaker first. It all comes back down to inflammation. So what happens is when your body's subjected to toxins, it's got to store it somewhere. So it stores it inside your liver cells and also on eventually into your fat stores, your white fat stores. So we want to get rid of that stuff. So when you're in that ketosis phase, what winds up happening is when your body starts secreting leptin, it takes it from the liver almost immediately. So your first 21 days on this dietary program, your body will go through a detox. Okay, it's pretty interesting stuff too. Like keto fog, where your brain's kind of like fogged over a little bit because you're putting a lot of toxins back into your system. You got keto rash. Sometimes through your skin, you'll have a little bit of a rash come through. There's keto belly. It's where your belly is sloughing off a lot of those cells. And I know it sounds horrible, right? Why am I doing this program? The thing is, though, it's that detox that every one of us really needs for longevity. It really comes down to like if we're not thinking about our inflammatory processes and dealing with those. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we come up with those nasty diseases, those cancers, the heart disease. As a big part of this too, I was reading Tim Ferriss's book, and he had a doctor, Atta, A-T-T-A, a PhD, and his whole thing right now is getting patients into ketosis for cancer, and actually having people with certain cancers go on a ketogenic diet. And what happens, they found out, is that when you're in ketosis, the cells that are being sloughed off from glucagon and other sources are the weaker cells, and guess what, in the body, cancer is a weaker cell. As a matter of fact, the majority of chemotherapy out there, what happens, what they're trying to do to the body, they're putting you in ketosis because they're just bombarding you with chemicals to force that process, and that's when it's like almost, the treatment can kill you just as quick as the damn cancer can sometimes. So what happens now for us is, or in science, this PhD guy, he's saying every human should at least fast once every quarter. They should at least fast for anywhere between 1, 3 to 5 days. Just go through a fasting process, because what happens is those cells that you lose are those cancrogenic cells, possible growth cells. And remember we said that insulin? Insulin's a what? It's a growth factor. It produces muscles, produces fats. Guess what else it can produce? Cancer. It can accelerate cancer growth. So again, that's why it's an important part for longevity, keeping that in that part. Again, another benefit of doing a keto-based diet. So as the day washes out, when you go along, having that last meal in here, when you end that day at that 8 p.m. slot, you're then fasting again for that 16-hour period you're getting back in and through. What we're doing now is we're keeping our choices open, okay? High produce stuff, again, good vegetables, good meats, good fats, good things coming through the diet. Our portion control now, again, higher fat, medium protein, very low carbohydrate, and now the most important part, which I was having a hard time solving this riddle, is the timing part. Again, when you're condensing your day into this small window here, what you're able to do, again, is let your system relax. Okay, it's not processing 5 meals a day. It's a lot of work for the digestive system. You're letting it relax. You're getting in 2 to 3 meals, at the most on that part. It's letting it relax. What winds up happening on the longevity part of this diet is the idea that from sustainability part, this is my 6th month on the diet itself, I found for me that I work in a 5-to-2 ratio. Okay, so 5 days I'm in ketosis. I do 5 days. For 2 days, I let myself kind of relax. Now, I keep a lot of the basic principles. The nice thing about it is during those 2 days, it's not like I'm carb driven. That's why, again, why I'm so high on this diet is because I'm no longer a carboholic. My 11-year-old daughter at home, Reese, a fantastic baker, and whenever she would bake cookies, I couldn't just have one. It would be like 5 of them, 6 of them, and I would look next morning, oh, there's more cookies. I'll have some more cookies. She bakes. I still love your baking, love it. I just don't eat it as much anymore because I'm not drawn to it. During those 2 days, I'm allowed to be able to, again, have some liberties on that side, but not be drawn to them. What a different experience life is when you don't feel that addiction coming back in and through. So, 5 days solid, 2 days off, allows me, again, to recycle this back through. You will go out of ketosis when you're off this for those 2 days, but getting back into it takes me about anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to get right back into that cycle, and you're back into that same process. What I've been, the comparison I drew it to is the idea that it really pretty much tightens up your throttle like on a car. Like if you ever driven like a high-end sports car, as soon as you hit the gas, it feels you get the energy right away. That's exactly what this diet was doing for me. When I'm back into that, it's not that sluggish feeling where I got to push down. As soon as Monday hits, I'm back in that ketosis. You're right back into that real throttling state on that part, for the most part. Now, when you're transitioning through the program, you'll see on here, there's a couple of things that can pop up during that time. Again, we talked about the side effects on that side. The reason why, again, the side effects is because the liver is now detoxing, you're getting the toxic fat off your body. After about 21 days, 30 days, it can take anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks. And by the way, I should have started this at the beginning. This diet's not for everybody. I can tell you that right now. The reason why it's not for everybody is because, again, some people out there right now may be dealing with other health issues. Come talk to us first before we start any kind of dietary changes. But some people may lack a gallbladder. You know, just had gallbladder surgery. We have tough diet, a lot of fat. You can still do a version of it, but we got to talk about it. But when you're going through that detox phase and you're starting to detox through, what you're trying to set the body up primarily for is again that extra energy burn. Your body is now going to excrete a lot more urine because now you're trying to get rid of it. You know, a very interesting part of this diet is the idea that your body's processing more electrolytes because I go to the bathroom more. And I drink a lot of water, but I'm usually, when I drink water, and I had a lecture last year, we always say the solution to pollution's dilution. So the more water you put in, the more it flushes you out. And I was always trying to get a light-colored yellow, lighter yellow urine, almost like clearer. I can't even do that in this diet. It's really amazing on that part because your body's just pulling so much out of your system. And the problem is sometimes if your electrolytes go down too, so there's electrolyte imbalance you have to look out for because cramping becomes part of the issue too. Again, these are all the cycling going through. But after about 3 weeks to 6 weeks, your body then becomes what they call keto adapted, okay? So keto adaptation is when your body is now familiar with burning ketones as an energy. It's no longer having to utilize sugar. So it's a very interesting phase. It's almost like a switch got turned on and all of a sudden you're in that fat burning state. Again, that's that throttling feeling that when you're eating and when you're going through like life in general, work in general, what winds up happening is you don't have that same kind of energy drop back down coming back in and through. Now, one of the questions that comes up, and John raised it before, is like, what about training? Like when you're working out, okay? The cool part is there's a website, I think it's VitaHealth, VitaHealth.com. There's a Dr. Finney, MD, out there, and he was an endurance athlete. And, you know, most of my runners in the world right now, I tell them, like, don't carb up, they're like, freak out. Like, wait a second, I gotta have my pasta. I need my sugar gel packs when I'm running. Well, what happens with that is your body is so prone to using sugar, you hit the proverbial wall. If you're a really endurance, marathoner, you'll hit that wall. The reason why you hit that wall is because your brain and your body are so sugar dependent that the muscle glucose goes way down. Your brain says, I need some. It just basically just stops you right there, cramps you right up. This MD, and what he studies it in, is dealing with endurance athletes, particularly right now, ultras, so like 50-mile, 100-milers, and he's finding that the ones that are in ketosis, they have no problem. They never hit a wall because guess why? Their brain's so used to burning ketones as energy, they don't have to burn sugar. So they're always in that bonking state. They learn to live in that state. So it's a pretty amazing part on that side. So when it comes to training, I don't alter anything as far as I try to stay with your intermittent fasting. I typically would try to train ideally right about here, right about 11 o'clock if I can. Okay, the reason being is because when you're exercising, you're burning up more calories. If you don't have sugar in your storage, we talked about it earlier, that your muscles are like a big glucose stored bag, you're going to optimize that sugar and burn it back down. Guess what happens when you eat this first meal? It's like a sponge, sucks right back up into the system. Okay, so really good time on there. Now, outside of not, I always tell people, listen, it's more important about just doing something than not doing something. So if you're a night person, you want to train up here, that's fine too. It's just more so for the most part, it's just some workout that day, you're going to get that workout in, you're going to have that optimization. One of the things that, again, I struggled with was the idea that when I get done working out, I want to have that meal just so I can fill up those muscle bags back with sugar again, put on some muscle back on that side. So, excellent. Any questions from you guys at all?
You mentioned, hey Doug, you mentioned brain fog.
Yes.
Can you tell me more, either inside and outside of keto, and I guess when you just kick it in, it's going to be worse.
For a couple days, yeah. So the keto brain comes from your body's detoxing through the liver. So it just feels like almost like a flu state. Sometimes people describe it as a keto flu. They just feel like energy's down, coming through. That's because your body's just getting used to burning that energy source. And again, when you're utilizing that fat and that leptin is being released from the fat cells, you have toxins coming out with it. So for the first 3 weeks to 6 weeks, sometimes you go through a phase where your body's just pushing a lot of toxins into the system. So drinking a lot of water, like I talked about, urinating and seeing really deeper colored urine because you're pushing through that stuff. That's coming from that toxification aspect of it. So it's pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean, there's ways to offset that. I mean, you can bump up. Big thing in the diet you'll see too is a lot of Himalayan salts. So the Himalayan salt pink salt tends to be very high in minerals. And it's a basic sodium that you're going to need because when you're urinating a lot, you're starting to draw through a lot more of your electrolytes. We do also recommend Calm. It's a magnesium supplement because again, when you're detoxing and you're urinating more, it's going to take some of those with it too. So you're going to have magnesium, sodium, potassium. Potassium's a tougher one too because potassium tends to be what? Where we find potassium in? What's that?
Potatoes,
Yeah, carbs. Yeah, bananas, right? You want bananas, And the problem is, guess what? Bananas high carbohydrate concentration, so you gotta back off on that. Beetroot works really good. Beets in general tend to be pretty high. Beetroot's good. There is a couple of supplements out there that I've seen that are electrolyte-based supplements that have a higher potassium in them, and that's good too. And there's a couple of different brands out there. Just ask us.
On your timeline, when do you suggest taking the potassium, magnesium? Is it like at night or is it?
I do the magnesium at night. So Calm itself, it's CALM. Calm. It's a effervescent. You put it into a thing of water, and magnesium in general. It can be digested. You have to be careful with your digestive system. That's milk and magnesium. Helps you go to the bathroom. I found for me it helped me sleep. So that was a big thing for me was just sleep. Magnesium also is very important in neurogenic resurfacing, so getting your neurons to turn back over and get healthier. Magnesium plays a big role in that. RNA, DNA, same thing, replication of that needs a higher concentration of magnesium. So I do that magnesium at night. I get about anywhere between 320 milligrams to up to about 600, depending upon how many teaspoons I put in there. I get a little bit of brain fog. I get a little bit of that haziness the next morning because it gives me pretty deep sleep. So sometimes I will take it earlier. I've been taking it like earlier in the morning, and just, if you're doing coffee on top of that, you're not going to have too much out of it. Apple cider vinegar is a big part of this too. I do, one of my protocols I use is apple cider vinegar, particularly is to help to regulate the acids in the system, because what happens with a lot of people is that when they start to adapt to this diet, again, that dietary change can create some changes acidic-wise, and so getting apple cider vinegar, it helps you solve that problem, which is good too.
Another question, Doc. So I like get in the morning, work out, grab a protein shake, because that kind of tides me over till at least noonish, one-ish. Can you get into keto if you have some type of regimen like that, or is your clock just reset?
You got it. So what happens as soon as you eat, you're out of ketosis.
Okay.
So yeah, so working within the idea that the reason why I just don't do keto by itself and the intermittent fasting is allows me to get into that window for a longer period of time. So like, in essence for me, that protein shake would get pushed off till noon as long as I'm working efficiently for that part. So you wouldn't throw it out completely, but you just have to push it off to that later time.
Can I stop earlier? Meaning, if I just stopped eating earlier.
That's
you just slide the scale. Okay.
Yeah, 16-8 sliding. Yeah,
Okay.
so if you're more of a, you want to start eating at 6, and you're going to have 8 hours from 6, so 8 hours on top of 6 is like 4 o'clock, right? Somewhere in that area, right? 4 o'clock. Yeah, so 8 to 4. Yeah, mine just happens to be 8 to noon. So that's my noon to 8 is my 8-hour window. So yeah, you want to slide it back 2 hours, up 2 hours, whatever you want to do as far as your time goes. That's up to you on that side. It just, with my schedule and how it works, you just want to find that sustained time for those times. Now, there are ways to measure ketones in the body. There are pee sticks, which aren't really, they're just pee on urinate on, that tells you if you're into nitrogen release, which would be more into ketosis. The true way to do it, though, on Amazon, they do sell the finger prick one. You can actually test your moles of how many millimoles of ketones are in your system. That's a really important way too, and you'll see how quick you can get in and out of that range. For me, it's about 7 to like 10 is like when I finally get into like heavy run in that high feeling. It's like I said, it's a very interesting energy where you just feel more connected. I'm more snappy in my brain. I'm putting pieces together. That's when I know I'm in ketosis. So, and again, I measured it before, and that's right about that window. So keep in mind, again, you may be in a level of ketosis after resting, but it's not a heavy where you need to be. It's like 0.02 or something like that, and then you get up to like 2 to 7 millimoles. It takes a little bit of time. But that, again, so what will happen is, in essence, with the protein shake here, you start your clock. You just have to find that endpoint. So you just say, okay, well, I'm doing my protein shake at 7, fast forward 8 hours, and that's when my last meal's coming through. So.
Inflammation.
Yes.
You mentioned all the bad things come from inflammation, and you had mentioned something before in a previous talk about some percent of lifestyle choices lead to death or something like that. How many in America is it like 74% of?
Yeah, and it's about 70. Yeah, about 70% of all lifestyle-based diseases. So lifestyle deaths, coming from about 70% of all deaths, according to NIH. So again, more people are dying every day from forcing knives than any other killer out there. So again, it's a driving factor on that part. Underlyingly, again, you deal with, we always talk about the 3 stresses here in the practice. We always talk about the emotional component of stress, that your emotions can drive inflammation. So the more stressful you are, the more you're not factoring through, it definitely drives inflammation. Plus, it also shuttles breathing too. That's a big part of if you're under emotional stress. You always got to find time to breathe, and then obviously drink water too. That's a good medium to kind of help get rid of some of that chemical waste, which is the next stress we look at. The chemical stress, again, chemical stresses typically come from our food choices and our selections. We live in a very abundant choice society, but we lack a lot of nutrients. So most people out there are very much nutrient deficient, but they're calorically sufficient. Mm-hmm. And again, that drives the epidemic we see right now with kids with diabetes, type 2 diabetes particularly, not the one that mom and dad unfortunately gave you. Type 1's inherited, it's a very small percentage. When I was in school, it was known as adult onset diabetes. Now kids are getting it more and more, coming up from earlier for it too, which is really sad to see coming through. Like I said, a lot of it, we did talk about the sugar one, where that whole sugar phenomenon came to be because of just lobbyists and marketing, and they kind of turned us away from coconuts and all that stuff. And the sugar and the cereal company were able to really optimize on that, because guess what? Fats are kind of expensive. That's the other last perk I'll leave with you guys. So again, outside the idea that I lost weight, outside the idea that my brain functioning went up, which was great too. Emotional-wise, I felt much more connected to what I was doing. Like I said, it gave me much more control feeling in my head. I saved money. So I'm only eating twice a day. So at the end of the month, it was like $400 savings when you look at the overall numbers, because you're no longer having 5 meals a day. Mm-hmm. You're going down to 2. You're eating 2 or 3 meals. And so again, from a cost savings perspective, a big thing I hear from some people when I'm doing, especially in corporations, it's expensive to be healthy, and I get it. You can be, but it's expensive to be sick too. Really expensive. As a matter of fact, it's the #1 cause of bankruptcy right now because of medical problems later in life. So coming through. So yeah, so lose weight, save some money. Good on that side. Any other questions? Awesome. All right, so what we're going to do for Facebook Land, if you guys are interested in doing a program, we actually did map it out. I'm going to steal it from Tess here in a second. We are actually going to be starting up our own challenge to get you guys through the first 3 weeks, so 21 days. We basically did everything in here for you. We did exactly the keto, how to avoid keto flu, adjusting this plan for men, because again, caloric wise go up a little bit, additional supplements, I covered everything here. You got your probiotics, your fish oils, intermittent fasting, cyclical ketosis, like I said, the 5-2, and then your meal plans. We basically mapped out everything for you for the first 3 weeks, has everything you're gonna eat. That meal plan then turns into your grocery list. So when you go to the grocery store, you're actually bringing this sheet with you. As it's in a PDF format, you can bring it up on your phone, you pull up the email, boom, it's right there for you. So there's your shopping list. And then in the back is all your recipes. And so the recipes, again, everything from, beef, fat bombs. I tried to make a fat bomb to bring them in for everybody, and it was a miserable fail. I didn't know there was 2 types of coconut milk out there. You gotta buy the canned condensed stuff, not the actual coconut milk you buy from like the refrigerator aisle. Yeah, it didn't come out too well. Fudgy fat bombs, Swiss almond fat bombs are really good. There's a lot of really good. I brought in some almond butter. I'll do nut butters quite a bit, so for snacks. Everything on there is what helped get me successful to where I feel now, confident-wise. This is something I'll stay on. Right now, currently, it's about October right now. This is usually my fat phase of the year where I'm actually putting back on weight because football season's on. I'm usually not as back into doing more paleo, more zone. This is usually when I put on an extra weight, and it just hasn't happened this year so far, thank God. And just going to maintain that way because again, using that principles working pretty well. So any questions at Facebook Live, give us a call or leave a comment below the video, and we can go ahead and get you started on the actual process. We are also going to be running a special for our doing the keto diet and training, so we are gonna run a special, so give a call too for that. We're gonna run a training special to where you'll get to work with one of our trainers while you're doing this dietary program and have more touch points with me. Because I found for the most part that what people need on here is the accountability part. There is a private Facebook page also you'll get access to for all the support pieces, because like I said, there are side effects that have to be mitigated during this process. When, again, by mitigating, it basically says that, hey, listen, it's gonna, this, keto feeling, this keto flu, this keto feeling, it's just your body detoxing, you have to push through it, because at the end of it is when you're keto adapted, it's a lot easier coming through. Cool. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Good stuff.